The fluorescent lights of the diner hummed their tired song, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made my reflection in the window look even more exhausted than I felt. My feet throbbed in my worn sneakers. The left one had a hole I'd been ignoring for 3 weeks now. Every step was a reminder of how far I'd fallen, how the girl who once dreamed of art school had become invisible. Just another struggling mother in a city that chewed up people like me and spit them out. I shifted Emma's weight on my hip. At 3 years old, she was getting too heavy to carry, but the stroller had broken last month, and I couldn't afford to replace it. Her small fingers clutched my collar, and I could feel her breath warm against my neck, sweet with the milk I'd given her from the last carton in our fridge. "Mama hungry," she whispered, and the words pierced through me like glass. "I know, baby. Just a little longer." The diner was packed. Friday night always was. Families clustered in booths, their laughter and the clink of silverware creating a symphony of normalcy I could only observe from the outside. My stomach growled, answering Emma's plea with its own. I'd eaten half a granola bar this morning. That was 12 hours ago. I scanned the room, desperation making my vision sharpen. There, in the back corner, a large booth, and only one man sitting there. He faced the entrance, his posture rigid, controlled. Even from here, I could see he didn't belong in this place. His suit was too expensive, too perfectly tailored. Dark fabric that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. The way he sat spoke of power, of someone who owned the space around him rather than merely occupying it. 2 men stood near the booth, not sitting. Security. They had to be. Built like brick walls, their eyes constantly moving, assessing. One touched his ear, an earpiece. My heart sank. This was a bad idea, but Emma whimpered again, and I felt the weight of the $17 in my pocket, enough for 1 kid's meal and maybe a coffee to justify taking up space. I moved before I could talk myself out of it. Each step felt like walking through water. The closer I got, the more details emerged. The man's hair was dark, almost black, with silver threading through the temples. His jaw was sharp, shadowed with stubble that looked intentional rather than neglectful. His hands rested on the table, strong hands, scarred knuckles. A watch gleamed at his wrist, catching the light. Not a Rolex. Something I didn't recognize, which probably meant it cost more than a car. One of the security men stepped forward as I approached, his bulk blocking my path. Up close, he was terrifying, a scar running down his cheek, eyes cold as winter stone. "Private booth," he said, his voice like gravel. My voice cracked. Emma buried her face in my shoulder. "I'm sorry, there are no other tables, and I just need to feed my daughter. I won't bother anyone. Please." "Ma'am, you need to let her through." The voice came from the booth. It was quiet, barely above a conversational tone, but it cut through the diner's noise like a blade. The security man stepped aside immediately, and I found myself looking directly at the man in the suit. His eyes were gray. Not blue-gray or green-gray, but pure gray. The color of storm clouds, of smoke, of danger. They fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. He didn't smile, didn't frown. His face was a mask of careful neutrality, but those eyes, they saw everything. They cataloged me in seconds, my stained jeans, my twice-mended jacket, Emma's mismatched socks, the desperation I couldn't hide. "Can I share this table?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them, before I could remember how to be dignified in my poverty. He was silent for 3 heartbeats. The diner seemed to hold its breath with me. Then he gestured to the opposite side of the booth, a small movement of his hand that somehow felt both generous and commanding. "Only if I pay the bill." I froze. No, I couldn't. "Sit." Not harsh, but absolute. The kind of voice that wasn't used to being questioned. I slid into the booth, Emma still clinging to me. The leather seat was worn but clean, and suddenly I was hyper-aware of how I must look, how we must smell, the laundromat's cheap detergent, Emma's fruit snacks, my own nervous sweat. A waitress appeared instantly, as if summoned by invisible strings. She was older, kind-faced, but even she seemed nervous around this man. The usual for me, he said, still watching me. Then, to me, order what you need. I can pay. You can't. It wasn't cruel, just factual. His eyes had already done the math. My clothes, my daughter's clothes, the way I was holding that menu like it was a treasure map. Order. My hands shook as I looked at the menu. Emma's eyes had locked onto the pictures of pancakes, her small finger pointing. Mama, that one. The kids' pancake meal, I managed. With milk and coffee. Please. The man spoke again, never breaking eye contact with me. Bring the pancakes immediately. And add a chicken club sandwich, fries and water, he paused. Actually, make it 2 kids' meals. Children need options. The waitress nodded and vanished. I stared at him, my throat tight. Why are you doing this? You asked to share my table. He leaned back slightly, his posture still perfect, controlled. This is my table. That makes you my guest. Something in the way he said guest made my skin prickle. Not threatening exactly, but weighted. Intentional. Emma had relaxed against me, I whispered, sensing food was coming, safety was near. Your daughter, he said, not a question, but I nodded anyway. Emma, she's 3. And her father? The question felt like a physical touch, invasive but somehow not offensive coming from him. Gone. It doesn't matter. It does. His eyes hadn't moved from my face. Everything matters. One of the security men approached, leaning down to whisper something. The man in the suit, because I didn't know what else to call him, listened without looking away from me, then nodded once. The security man disappeared. You come here often? He asked. And the question was so normal, so mundane, that it felt absurd coming from someone who radiated danger like heat from a flame. No, I can't usually afford it. But Emma needed... I stopped, hating how pathetic I sounded. I had a little extra this week. $17. Again, not a question. He'd counted it somehow. Seen it in the way I held myself. What do you do? I clean. Houses, offices, whatever I can get. I adjusted Emma on my lap. I'm trying to save for childcare so I can work more, but it's expensive. Everything's expensive when you have nothing. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but something. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. Sarah. He said it slowly, like he was tasting it, memorizing it. I don't need to know, I interrupted, suddenly afraid. Because I'd seen the news. I'd heard the rumors about men like him, men who owned this city's shadows. Really, I just thank you for the food. We'll eat and go, and you'll never see us again. Now he did smile, and it transformed his face from coldly handsome to something almost beautiful and infinitely more dangerous. You think I'd let you leave without knowing you're safe? I'm fine. You're lying. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught his scent. Expensive cologne, something woody and dark, underlaid with the faint smell of gun oil and leather. You're exhausted, you're frightened, and you're not fine. The food arrived, breaking the tension. Emma's eyes went wide at the stack of pancakes, and she immediately reached for them. I helped her, grateful for the distraction, trying to ignore how the man across from me watched every movement with those storm-gray eyes. I ate the sandwich mechanically, aware of every bite, every swallow. It was the best thing I'd tasted in months, and I hated that he was seeing me devour it like I'd been starving. Because I had been. We both had been. Emma giggled, syrup on her face, and the man's expression softened almost imperceptibly. She's beautiful. She's everything, I said quietly. Yes. Something flickered in his eyes, memory, perhaps, or pain. Children should be protected, always. I do my best. I can see that. He pulled out his phone, one of 3 on the table, I noticed now, and typed something quickly. Where do you live? Warning bells screamed in my head. Why? Because I'm going to have someone drive you home. It's nearly 11, and you're carrying a child through streets that aren't safe after dark. I can't. You will. Steel wrapped in silk, that voice. My driver will take you. You'll be safe. Both of you. I don't even know you. No, he agreed, but I know enough. You're a mother trying to survive in a city that makes that nearly impossible. You're proud, which is why you only asked to share a table, not for money. You're exhausted, which is why you're here at all instead of feeding her crackers at home. And you're scared of me, which shows you're intelligent. Every word was true, and I hated that he could read me so easily. The diner door opened, and a man entered. Younger, nervous energy, scanning the room. His eyes landed on the booth, and I saw something flash across his face. Recognition. Fear. He started toward us, his hand reaching into his jacket. Everything happened in seconds. The security men moved like lightning. One intercepted the young man, slamming him against the wall with controlled violence. The other positioned himself between the booth and the threat, his jacket open enough that I saw the gun at his hip. The man across from me didn't flinch, didn't even turn his head. His eyes stayed locked on mine, on Emma. "Take her to the back," he said calmly, as if men weren't being restrained 10 feet away. "Marco will escort you. Wait in the kitchen." I was already moving, Emma confused and starting to cry against my shoulder. A third man I hadn't noticed, Marco apparently, materialized at my side, guiding me firmly but gently toward the kitchen doors. As they swung closed behind me, I heard the man's voice, no longer quiet, still controlled, but with an edge that made my blood run cold. "You interrupted my dinner." The kitchen staff barely looked at us, too busy with orders, and Marco positioned me in the far corner, his body blocking me from the door, from whatever was happening outside. Emma was crying now, frightened by the tension, the movement. I held her close, whispering soothing nonsense, my heart hammering against my ribs. What had I done? What had I walked into by asking to share a table with a man who had armed guards and phones that never stopped buzzing and eyes that saw too much? The kitchen door swung open. The man in the suit stood there, adjusting his cuffs, not a hair out of place. Behind him, I could see the diner returning to normal, as if nothing had happened. The young man was gone. "Come," he said, extending his hand toward me. "My driver is waiting." I stared at that outstretched hand, strong, scarred, capable of gentleness or violence. This was the moment. I could refuse, could run, could take Emma and disappear into the night. But his eyes held mine, and in them I saw something unexpected. Not threat, not cruelty. Promise. Protection. Possession. I took his hand, and the warmth of his skin against mine felt like sealing a contract I didn't fully understand. His fingers closed around mine, firm but careful, and he helped me stand. "The bill," I started weakly. "Is handled." He led me toward the back exit, Marco and the other security men forming a protective diamond around us. "Everything is handled." Outside, a black SUV waited, windows tinted so dark they reflected the night back at itself. The vehicle was pristine, expensive, and very clearly armored. I could tell by the way it sat heavy on its wheels, the thickness of the glass. The driver opened the rear door, and the man in the suit helped me inside, his hand on the small of my back, guiding me into leather seats that probably cost more than my entire apartment's furniture. He slid in beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth, smell that dangerous cologne. Emma had quieted, her eyes drooping with exhaustion and the comfort of a full stomach. "Where?" his driver asked. I gave my address, my voice small. The man beside me said nothing, but I felt his attention sharpen. My neighborhood. Of course he'd know what that meant. The crime rate, the poverty, the danger. The SUV glided through streets that looked different through tinted windows, the city both familiar and foreign. I'd never ridden in something so expensive, so secure. It felt like being wrapped in steel and leather, protected from a world that had been crushing me for so long. "This wasn't necessary," I said quietly, Emma heavy and drowsy in my arms. "Yes," he replied. It was. We rode in silence, the city's lights painting patterns across his face. He made a call on one of his phones, speaking in low tones that I tried not to hear, words like handled and taken care of and no loose ends. When we pulled up to my building, 4 stories of crumbling brick and broken dreams, I felt shame burn through me. This was where I lived, where I was raising Emma, The man surveyed it with those storm-gray eyes, his jaw tight. "This isn't safe. It's what I can afford. That doesn't make it safe." He turned to me, and the intensity in his gaze trapped me. "What apartment?" 3B. He pulled out his phone again, typing. "Marco will walk you up. Wait inside until you hear him leave." Why? Because I need to know you're secure. This was insane. All of it. I don't understand why you care. His hand moved, so fast I almost missed it, and suddenly his fingers were touching Emma's hair, gentle as a whisper. She didn't wake, just sighed in her sleep. "Children should be safe," he said again. And this time there was something raw in his voice, something that spoke of old wounds and fierce conviction. Always. Then his eyes met mine, and what I saw there made my breath stop. Not just concern, not just kindness. Hunger. Claim. Intent. "Go," he said softly, pulling his hand back. "You're tired." Marco opened the door, and I climbed out on shaking legs. The man handed me something, a card, black and heavy, with only a phone number embossed in silver. "If you need anything," he said, "anything at all, call." I can't. You can. You will. Not a request. A command wrapped in certainty. "Go, Sarah." The way he said my name felt like ownership. I clutched Emma and that card and walked toward my building, Marco's silent presence behind me. At the door, I turned back. The SUV sat there, engine purring, and through the tinted window I could just make out his silhouette, watching, waiting, making sure I was safe. I walked up 3 flights of stairs that suddenly felt like climbing a mountain, my legs weak, my mind racing. Marco checked my apartment with professional efficiency, windows, locks, even the fire escape, then nodded and left. I heard his footsteps descend, heard the building's outer door close, heard, faintly, the SUV pull away. Only then did I put Emma in her bed, still in her clothes because she was sleeping so peacefully I couldn't bear to wake her. I sat on my own bed, a mattress on the floor, and looked at the black card in my hand. No name. Just a number, and a certainty that had settled into my bones like winter cold. Tonight had changed everything. I'd asked to share a table with a stranger, and somehow I'd walked into a trap I didn't understand. But the worst part, the most terrifying part, was the small voice in my head that whispered, I didn't want to escape. I didn't sleep. The black card sat on the windowsill where the first gray light of dawn could touch it, catching the embossed numbers and making them gleam like a promise or a threat. Emma breathed softly in her small bed across the room, her face peaceful in sleep, sticky with dried syrup I'd been too exhausted to wash off properly. My body ached, the familiar ache of too much work and not enough rest, but my mind wouldn't quiet. It replayed every moment from the diner. His eyes, his voice. The way violence had erupted around him while he sat perfectly still, as if chaos bent to his will rather than the other way around. The way he'd touched Emma's hair. The way he'd said my name. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at streets still dark, still dangerous. A cat darted between dumpsters. Somewhere below, a bottle shattered. Normal sounds. My world. But the card on the windowsill didn't belong to this world. It belonged to expensive suits and armored vehicles, and men who commanded rooms with whispers. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it. Quality. Everything about him had been quality. The kind that separated people like him from people like me by more than just money. By power. By the certainty that the world would rearrange itself to accommodate his needs. My phone buzzed on the floor beside my mattress. I'd missed 3 calls during the night, all from the cleaning service, probably assigning me weekend jobs. I needed to call back, needed to confirm, needed the money. But I just stood there, holding his card, watching the city wake up. When Emma stirred an hour later, I was making breakfast from the last of our groceries, a scrambled egg split between us, toast from the heels of the bread loaf. She ate happily, chattering about the pancakes from last night, asking when we could go back to the nice place. We can't, baby. Why not? Because we don't belong there, because I don't know what I've gotten us into. Because that man saw too much and offered too much, and I'm terrified of what it means, because it's expensive. She accepted this with a 3-year-old's logic, moving on to tell me about her stuffed rabbit's adventures. I half listened, my mind elsewhere. The cleaning service called again. I answered. Sarah, thank God, we've got an emergency job. Penthouse downtown. Needs a deep clean by tonight. Owner's very particular, but he pays triple rate. You available? Triple rate. That was nearly 2 weeks of normal work in one day. Yes. What's the address? She rattled it off, and my stomach dropped. I knew that building. Everyone did. The Apex Tower. 50 stories of glass and steel where only the city's elite lived. The kind of place where doormen wore better suits than I'd ever owned. Client specifically requested someone trustworthy, discreet. I told him you're our best. Don't make me regret it. I won't. And Sarah? No shortcuts. He'll check everything. I hung up and stared at Emma. Triple rate meant I could pay rent with money left over. Maybe fix the stroller. Maybe buy her new shoes, real ones, not thrift store cast-offs. But it also meant finding childcare. And Mrs. Chen next door charged $20 for weekend sitting. The black card seemed to whisper from the windowsill. No. Absolutely not. I'd find another way. By noon, I'd exhausted every option. Mrs. Chen was visiting family. The community center was closed. The girl from 2A who sometimes helped was working herself. I sat on my mattress, Emma playing with blocks I'd made from cardboard boxes, and felt the walls closing in. I could call the cleaning service back, say I couldn't make it. They'd be furious, might not call me again. Triple rate would go to someone else. Or my hand reached for the card before I'd fully decided. The weight of it felt heavier now, like I was holding something that would change everything if I used it. Just this once, I told myself, just for childcare. I'd pay him back somehow. The phone rang twice. Yes. His voice, unmistakable even through the line. Not a question, not a greeting, just acknowledgement. It's Sarah. From I Know Who You Are. Silence stretched between us. I heard traffic in his background, voices speaking in tones too low to understand. His world, busy and dangerous and efficient. I need... The words stuck. I have a job today. Good money. But I need someone to watch Emma for a few hours, and I can't find anyone, and I know I shouldn't be calling, but where's the job? Downtown. The Apex Tower. It's a cleaning job, but... What time? 3 o'clock until... My driver will pick you both up at 2:30. Emma will stay with my housekeeper. She raised 3 children and has a granddaughter Emma's age. I can't ask you to... You didn't ask. I'm offering. A pause, and I heard him speak to someone else in Italian, rapid-fire commands, then back to me. Address? I gave it, hating how easily I surrendered, how the relief flooding through me felt like both salvation and surrender. Sarah. His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the phone between us. Did you sleep? The question caught me off guard. Some. Liar. But there was something almost gentle in it. Sleep tonight. After your job. That's not a suggestion. The line went dead before I could respond. At exactly 2:30, the black SUV pulled up outside my building. Not the same driver as last night. This one was older, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that somehow made me feel slightly less like I was being abducted. Miss Mitchell? I'm James. Mr. DeLuca sent me. DeLuca. Now I had a name for the man with storm-gray eyes. The drive took 20 minutes through Saturday traffic. Emma sat in a car seat that definitely hadn't been there last night. New, expensive, installed with the kind of precision that spoke of preparation. He'd known I'd call, or hoped I would. We didn't go to the Apex Tower. Instead, James pulled into an underground garage beneath a building I recognized from news reports about the city's most exclusive residences. Security waved us through without question. The elevator required a key card. We rose in silence. When the doors opened, we stepped directly into a penthouse that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Everything was clean lines and expensive taste. Not ostentatious, but unmistakably wealthy. Art on the walls that might have been real. Furniture that looked both beautiful and comfortable. And there, standing by those impossible windows, was DeLuca. He'd changed from the suit. Now he wore dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. He looked younger in the daylight streaming through his windows, but no less dangerous. His eyes found mine immediately, held them. Sarah. God, the way he said my name. An older woman emerged from what must have been the kitchen. Short, plump, with warm eyes and flour on her apron. This must be Emma. Come, Piccola. I'm making cookies. Do you like cookies? Emma, usually shy with strangers, looked up at me for permission. I nodded, still frozen by DeLuca's gaze, and she took the woman's outstretched hand. I'm Maria, the woman said, leading Emma away. Mr. DeLuca's housekeeper. You don't worry about your bambina, she'll be safe and spoiled. And then we were alone. He moved toward me, each step deliberate, and I resisted the urge to back away. He stopped close, too close, in the space that should have felt invasive but somehow didn't. The job at the Apex Tower, he said. Penthouse 50A. My blood went cold. That's your place? Yes, you arranged this. I made a call. Suggested you specifically. His head tilted slightly, studying me. You needed the work. I needed someone trustworthy in my home, mutually beneficial. You manipulated. I created an opportunity. His hand rose, and I watched as his fingers touched my cheek, barely a whisper of contact. You're exhausted, Sarah. You work yourself to death for wages that won't even keep you fed. Someone needs to take care of you. I can take care of myself. Can you? Not mocking, just honest. Because from where I stand, you're drowning. The truth of it hurt worse than any insult. I turned my face away from his touch, and his hand dropped. The job's real, he said. Triple rate, as promised. Maria will watch Emma. James will drive you there and back. All you have to do is clean my apartment and accept that sometimes, Sarah, it's okay to let someone help. Why? I whispered. Why do you care? His jaw tightened. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Just looked at me with those storm-gray eyes that saw too much. Because I understand what it means to have everything taken from you, he finally said. And because when I see someone fighting as hard as you are to protect what matters, I respect that. I want to help that. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stepped back, giving me space, but his eyes never left mine. James is waiting. The apartment is empty. I'll be here with Emma. Clean it well, Sarah. I expect perfection. The command in his voice sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with fear. James drove me to the Apex Tower. The doorman greeted me with unexpected courtesy, clearly warned I was coming. The elevator to the 50th floor required the key card James provided. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. If DeLuca's residence was impressive, this was breathtaking. Bigger, more open, with views that made the city look like a toy model spread below. But unlike his home, this one felt empty, not just of people, of life. Beautiful, but cold. I worked for 4 hours, cleaning with a thoroughness born of both pride and fear. Fear that he would find fault, that this opportunity would vanish. Pride because he'd called me trustworthy, and I'd be damned if I proved him wrong. The bedroom was last, massive, dominated by a bed that could fit 4 people. The sheets were high-thread count Egyptian cotton. The closet held rows of suits, each one worth more than I made in months. Everything smelled of him, that woody, dangerous scent that had haunted me since last night. I was folding the last of the towels when my phone rang. Are you finished? DeLuca's voice, doing something to my pulse that shouldn't have been possible over a phone line. Almost. Good. Emma's asking for you. She's had cookies and watched cartoons and is currently explaining to Maria why her rabbit needs his own plate at dinner. Despite everything, I smiled. She does that. Maria's enchanted. A pause. James will bring you back here. We'll have dinner. I should take Emma home. You should eat. Both of you. Maria's made enough food to feed 20. It would be insulting to refuse. The command wrapped in courtesy. I was learning that was his way, offering things that weren't really offers at all, just decisions he'd already made. Okay, I whispered. Good girl. The words shouldn't have affected me. They did. James drove me back as the sun set, painting the city gold and red. My body ached. Good, honest work. But my mind raced. Every moment with DeLuca felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing one wrong step would send me falling and not knowing if I wanted to step back or jump. Emma ran to me when I entered his penthouse, her face bright with joy. "Mama, Miss Maria made cookies shaped like hearts, and there's a big TV, and Mr. DeLuca let me sit in his chair." I looked at him. He stood by those windows again, holding a glass of something amber. The setting sun behind him made him look like a figure from a dream or a nightmare. "She's delightful," he said simply. Maria had set the dining table. Not the formal one I glimpsed in another room, but a smaller one that somehow felt intimate. The food was incredible. Pasta in sauce that smelled like heaven, bread still warm, salad that looked like art. We ate. Emma chattered. Maria doted. DeLuca watched me with those unrelenting eyes, saying little but missing nothing. When Emma's eyes started drooping, Maria whisked her to a guest room. "Just for a little rest, Cara, then your mama will take you home." And suddenly, I was alone with him again. He poured wine without asking, handed me a glass. Our fingers touched, and electricity sparked between us. "You cleaned well," he said. "As expected. It's what you paid for. I paid for your time. Your excellence was a gift." He raised his glass slightly. "To gifts, then." I drank because I needed something to do with my hands, something to explain the heat in my face. "Sarah." He set down his glass, moved closer. "I want to help you. Truly help you. Better apartment, steady work, childcare for Emma. I can arrange all of it." "Why?" My voice shook. "What do you want from me?" His hand rose again, this time cupping my face fully, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "I want you safe. I want that child safe. And I want to know that when you go to sleep at night, you're not terrified about how you'll survive tomorrow. And what do I give you in return?" His smile was slow, dangerous, beautiful. "Nothing you're not willing to give, but Sarah." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. "Eventually, you'll want to give me everything." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And the terrifying part was how much I wanted it to be true. I didn't see DeLuca for 3 days. But I felt his presence everywhere. Monday morning, I woke to find an envelope slipped under my apartment door. Inside, $500 in cash, and a note in sharp, masculine handwriting, for groceries. "Feed yourself properly. L. Tuesday." Mrs. Chen knocked on my door with a confused expression, holding a check. "Some man came by, said he's paying me to be available for Emma anytime you need. A month in advance." "You know anything about this?" I knew everything and nothing about it. Wednesday, the building's landlord, a man who usually looked at me like I was one missed payment away from eviction, actually smiled when I passed him in the hallway. "Your rent's been paid through the end of the year, Miss Mitchell, and I've been instructed to fix that heating issue in your unit. Maintenance will be by Friday." I stood in the hallway after he walked away, my hands shaking, that black card burning a hole in my pocket where I'd been carrying it like a talisman. He was rearranging my life without asking permission, creating safety nets I hadn't requested, claiming me in ways that should have terrified me, but instead made something warm and dangerous unfurl in my chest. I called the number Thursday night after Emma fell asleep. He answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call. You can't just..." I stopped, tried again. "The money, the rent, Mrs. Chen, can't I?" His voice was silk over steel. "You needed help. I provided it. I didn't ask for any of that. No, you wouldn't." I heard him moving, the sound of a door closing, sudden quiet. "You'd rather starve than ask for help. I find that admirable and infuriating in equal measure. You don't own me." Silence stretched between us, thick and loaded. "Not yet," he said finally, and the certainty in those 2 words made my breath catch. "But Sarah, I protect what's mine, and whether you've accepted it or not, you became mine the moment you sat at my table." "That's insane." "Perhaps." A pause. "Are you safe tonight?" The change in topic threw me. "What?" "Your building. Your locks are inadequate. Your neighborhood is dangerous. And you're alone with a child. Are you safe? I've been fine for 3 years. That's not an answer. His voice dropped lower, urgent. I've had men watching your building. There was an attempted break-in 2 floors below you last night. The police didn't even show up. Ice flooded my veins. You've had men watching me? Protecting you. There's a difference. I couldn't even find words. That's stalking. That's ensuring you don't get hurt while you're too proud to admit you need protection. Steel now, no silk. I told you, Sarah. Children should be safe. Always. That includes their mothers. I sat on my mattress, phone pressed to my ear, emotions warring inside me. Anger at his presumption. Fear at how easily he'd invaded my life. And underneath it all, that traitorous warmth, someone cared. Someone was watching. Someone would come if I needed them. I want to see you, he said into my silence. Tomorrow. Bring Emma. We'll spend the day together. I have work. Cancel it. I can't just... You can. I'll compensate whatever you'd lose. Before I could argue, he continued. There's a children's museum. Emma would love it. Then lunch, somewhere she can be as messy as she wants. Then... A pause, weighted with meaning. Then we talk, really talk, about what happens next. What if I say no? You won't. So certain, so absolute. Because you're curious, Sarah. Curious about me, about what I'm offering, about what it would feel like to stop fighting alone. He was right, and I hated it. 10 o'clock, he said. James will pick you up. Wear something comfortable. DeLuca. Luca. His voice softened impossibly. When it's just us, call me Luca. The line went dead. Friday arrived with autumn sunshine and my stomach twisted in knots. I dressed Emma in her best outfit, still thrift store, still worn, but clean. For myself, I had even less. Jeans with the hole hidden by a patch I'd sewn, a sweater that had once been dark blue and was now something closer to gray. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The same mirror with the crack in the corner, the same flickering light, and barely recognized the woman looking back. Dark circles under my eyes despite sleeping better these past few nights. Cheekbones too sharp from too many skipped meals. Hair that needed a real cut, not the desperate trims I gave myself with kitchen scissors. This was what Luca saw when he looked at me. This exhausted, desperate creature. Why did he want this? James arrived precisely at 10. Emma was excited now, bouncing in her seat about the museum, about cookies with Miss Maria, about the nice man with the pretty car. The museum was in a part of the city I'd never been able to afford. A gleaming building designed to look like a child's imagination exploded into architecture, colors everywhere, children's laughter floating through air that smelled like popcorn and possibility. Luca was waiting at the entrance. He wore casual clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater that hugged his frame, leather jacket that probably cost more than a month of my old rent. Sunglasses hid his eyes until we approached, and then he removed them, and there was that storm-gray gaze that pinned me in place. Sarah. He said it like a greeting and a claiming all at once. Then he crouched down to Emma's level, his movements fluid and careful. Hello, Emma. Do you remember me? She nodded shyly, hiding partly behind my leg. I heard you like animals. Is that true? Another nod. He smiled, genuine, warm, transforming his face into something that made my heart stumble. Then you're going to love this place. They have a whole section about creatures from the ocean. Have you ever seen a shark? On TV, she whispered. Well, today you'll see one that's even bigger. Come on. He stood, offered his hand to her. Emma looked up at me for permission. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and watched my daughter place her small hand in his large, scarred one. We spent 3 hours in that museum. Luca was patient in ways I hadn't expected, carrying Emma when she got tired, explaining exhibits in terms she could understand, buying her an absurdly expensive stuffed octopus from the gift shop because she'd stared at it with longing eyes. But what undid me was watching him crouch beside her at the touch tank, helping her find the courage to touch a starfish, his voice gentle and encouraging, his hand steady on her back. This dangerous man, this person who commanded violence with whispers and rearranged lives with phone calls, was tender with my daughter. Security followed us, always two men, always at a distance but present. Other visitors gave us space without seeming to realize they were doing it. Luca moved through the world like he owned it, and perhaps he did. Lunch was at a restaurant with a play area where Emma could run wild while we sat at a table with sightlines to both her and the exits. I noticed how Luca positioned himself, back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning. Even in relaxation, he was alert. "You're staring," he said without looking at me, a small smile playing at his lips. "I'm trying to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you're doing this. Any of this." I gestured vaguely at the restaurant, the museum, everything. "You don't know us. We're nothing to you." Now he did look at me, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. "You're not nothing, Sarah. You could never be nothing. But why? I was married once." The words came quietly, unexpectedly. His eyes drifted to Emma, playing in the ball pit with other children. 7 years ago. Her name was Isabella. She was pregnant when she died. My hand moved of its own accord, covering his on the table. "Luca, a rival family." His voice was flat now, emotionless in the way of pain too deep to show. They wanted to send a message. Isabella was the message. She was 6 months pregnant with my son. Tears burned my eyes. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. His hand turned under mine, fingers interlacing with my own. "I tell you this so you understand. When I see a mother fighting to protect her child, when I see vulnerability that deserves protection rather than exploitation, I can't walk away. I won't. So this is about them, about what you lost." "No." His grip tightened. "It started that way, perhaps." He leaned closer. "But Sarah," his free hand rising to cup my cheek. "This is about you now, about the way you thanked me for feeding your daughter before yourself. About the pride in your eyes even when you're exhausted. About the fact that you called me despite being terrified, because Emma needed you to be brave. I'm not brave. I'm desperate. You're both. And you're beautiful." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "So fucking beautiful it hurts to look at you." My breath shuddered out. "Luca, I want you, Sarah. Not as charity, not as redemption. I want you in my home, in my life, in my bed. I want to give you everything you've been denied and watch you bloom. I want to protect Emma and give her the childhood she deserves, and I want you to stop fighting alone. You barely know me. I know enough, and I'll learn the rest." His eyes searched mine. "But I need to know you're willing, that this isn't just me taking what I want, that you want it too." Did I? Want this dangerous man with his painful past and his protective instincts? Want the security he offered? The safety? The end to the constant terror of not having enough? Want him? I looked at Emma, laughing in the play area, her face bright with joy I so rarely saw. Fed, safe, happy. I looked at Luca, at the hope and hunger warring in his storm-gray eyes. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Good. Fear means you're smart." His lips curved slightly. "But Sarah, I'm scared too. Scared of how much I already feel for you. Scared of what I'd do to keep you safe. Scared that you'll run, and I'll have to watch you struggle when I could have helped. What if this is a mistake? Then we'll make it together." He leaned closer still, his breath warm against my lips. "Say yes, Sarah. Let me take care of you. Let me give you what you need. And what do you get?" His smile was slow, possessive, devastating. "Everything." The word hung between us, heavy with promise and threat and desire. "One condition," I managed, my voice shaking. "Name it. You let me keep working. Not cleaning your places, but real work. Something of my own. I won't be kept, Luca. I won't be a possession you've bought." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or approval. Deal. In fact, he pulled out his phone, typed quickly. "I own several businesses, legitimate ones. There's an art gallery that needs a coordinator. You mentioned art school once. How did you—" "I pay attention." He showed me his phone. Details about a gallery in a good neighborhood, salary that made my head spin, flexible hours, childcare on site, benefits. Tears spilled over. This is too much. This is barely enough. He wiped my tears with his thumbs, cradling my face. Say yes, Sarah, please. Emma ran over, the stuffed octopus clutched to her chest. Mama, Mr. Luca, can we get ice cream? Luca's eyes never left mine. Can we, Mama? I looked at my daughter's hopeful face, at this man who'd appeared in my life like a storm and refused to leave, at the future he was offering, terrifying and tempting in equal measure. Yes, I whispered, and watched something fierce and victorious flash in Luca's eyes. Good girl, he murmured, and sealed it with a kiss to my forehead that felt like a brand. We got ice cream. We walked through a park where Emma chased pigeons, and Luca's security maintained their discreet distance. We talked, really talked, about logistics and boundaries and what came next. By the time James drove us home, Emma was asleep in her car seat, ice cream stained and exhausted and happy. Luca walked us up to my apartment, his presence overwhelming in the narrow hallway. At my door, he stopped me with a gentle hand on my arm. Pack what matters to you, he said quietly. James will be here Sunday morning to move you, both of you. Sunday? That's 2 days. Enough time to say goodbye to this place. His jaw tightened as he looked at my door, at the building around us. Not enough time for me to feel comfortable leaving you here, but I'm trying to give you space to breathe. Where will we go? My home. The one you've been to. Your own room. Your own space. Until you're ready for more. Emma will have a room that's actually meant for a child, not a corner of yours. Safety, security, family. Family. The word cracked something open inside me. Okay, I breathed. His smile was beautiful and terrifying. 2 days, Sarah. And then you're mine. He kissed my forehead again, then my cheek. Then, so softly I almost missed it, the corner of my mouth. Sleep well. You're safe now. And then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the stairs, leaving me trembling in my doorway with a sleeping child and a future I couldn't quite believe was real. Saturday passed in a blur of packing and panic. I stood in the center of my tiny apartment, this place that had been prison and sanctuary both, and tried to fit 3 years of survival into boxes James had delivered that morning. Boxes that were too nice for my belongings, sturdy and clean, with Mitchell written on the side in neat marker. Emma played with her few toys, oblivious to the magnitude of what was happening. To her, this was an adventure. Moving to the big house with the nice TV and Miss Maria's cookies. To me, it felt like standing on the edge of that cliff again, about to jump. My phone rang constantly, Luca checking in, making sure I had everything I needed. His voice a constant thread pulling me forward when doubt tried to drag me back. Having second thoughts? He asked during one call, his tone careful. 100th thoughts, I admitted, sitting on my mattress surrounded by half-packed boxes. That's fair. A pause. Sarah, if this isn't what you want, it's not about wanting. I pressed my fingers to my eyes, exhausted. It's about being terrified that I'm making a mistake. That I'm bringing Emma into something dangerous. That you'll wake up and realize we're not worth this trouble. Look at me. You're not here. Turn on your camera. My hands shook as I switched to video call. His face filled the screen. He was in what looked like an office, dark wood and leather, serious and beautiful and focused entirely on me. I don't make mistakes about what I want, he said, his storm gray eyes holding mine through the screen. And I've never wanted anything the way I want you. Both of you. Safe. With me. This isn't charity, Sarah. This is me being selfish, keeping what I've claimed. What if Emma gets hurt? What if someone comes after you and we're... Then they'll have to go through me first. And Sarah? His smile was sharp, dangerous. No one goes through me, ever. You're safer with me than you've been in your entire life. I promise you that. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. One day at a time, he said, softer now. That's all I'm asking. Move in tomorrow. See how it feels. If you hate it, if you're miserable, we'll figure something else out. But give me a chance to prove I can do this. that we can do this. Okay, I whispered. Good girl. Now finish packing. James will be there at 9. That night, I lay on my mattress for the last time. Emma curled against me and tried to memorize this feeling. The fear, yes, but also the hope. The sense of standing at the edge of something that could destroy me or save me, and choosing to jump anyway. Sunday morning arrived with rain, soft and gray, turning the city into a watercolor painting. James appeared precisely at 9 with 2 more men I didn't recognize, and they loaded my entire life into the SUV with an efficiency that spoke of practice. Mrs. Chen cried when I said goodbye, pressing dumplings into my hands and making me promise to visit. You be careful with that man, she whispered in my ear. He's dangerous, but maybe dangerous is what you need. Maybe she was right. The drive to Luca's, to our new home, I corrected myself, felt shorter than I remembered. Emma chattered excitedly the whole way, her nose pressed to the window, watching the city transform from our neighborhood to his. The underground garage, the elevator, the key card. All of it familiar now, but still surreal. The doors opened directly into the penthouse, and Luca was there waiting. He wore jeans and a dark sweater, casual but still impossibly elegant. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes found mine immediately, and I saw relief there, like he'd half expected me not to show. Welcome home, he said quietly. Maria appeared, whisking Emma away with promises of showing her the new room while the adults talk. I watched my daughter go, that small hand in Maria's, and felt the last of my defenses crumble. I was really doing this. Luca approached slowly, like I was a wild thing that might bolt. When he reached me, his hands came up to frame my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. Breathe, he murmured. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. Let me show you around. Really show you this time. The penthouse was even larger than I'd realized. 4 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. A kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Living spaces that flowed into each other with the kind of design that only money could buy. Art on the walls. Real art. Pieces I recognized from textbooks I'd once studied. Emma's room made me cry. It had been transformed into a child's dream. Soft pink walls with hand-painted butterflies. A bed that looked like a cloud. Shelves already filled with books and toys. A play area in the corner with more stuffed animals than any child could need. Through the window, you could see the park where we'd walked just days ago. Maria helped, Luca said from the doorway, watching me take it in. She said every little girl needs butterflies and dreams. It's too much, I whispered. It's barely enough. He came closer, his warmth at my back. Your room is next door, connected through a bathroom, so you can hear her if she needs you. My room was elegant and understated. A massive bed with linens that looked like clouds, a reading nook by the window, a closet that was mostly empty except for a few pieces hanging there. I touched one. A dress, simple but beautiful, in a deep blue that I'd never been able to afford. Maria guessed your size, Luca said. But we'll go shopping properly this week. Get you things you actually want. I know you don't need it. I want to give it to you anyway. His hand settled on my shoulders, warm and grounding. Let me spoil you a little, Sarah. You've been surviving for so long. Let me give you a chance to live. I turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. How to be in your world, how to accept all of this without feeling like I'm selling myself. You're not selling anything. You're accepting what you deserve. His hand rose to cup my cheek. And my world isn't as complicated as you think. Yes, I have businesses that exist in shadows. Yes, there are people who'd hurt me if they could. But here, in this home, with you and Emma, this is simple. This is safe. This is ours. What do people think? Your people, I mean. About me showing up with a child, moving into your home. His smile was sharp. They think I've finally found something worth protecting again. And they're right. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. The ones who matter are happy for me. The ones who aren't don't matter. And what am I to you? Really? Mine, he said simply. My woman. The person I wake up thinking about and fall asleep protecting. Is that enough of an answer? My heart hammered against my ribs. We barely know each other. Then we'll learn. His lips brushed my forehead. I'm a patient man when it matters, Sarah. I won't rush you into anything you're not ready for. But I also won't pretend I don't want everything from you eventually. Everything? Everything. His eyes darkened with heat and promise. Your trust. Your heart. Your body. Your future. All of it. But right now, today, I just want you here. Safe. Settled. Starting to believe this is real. A crash sounded from Emma's room, followed by Maria's gentle laughter and Emma's apology. The domesticity of it, the normalcy, made something in my chest crack open. I want to believe it, I whispered. Then believe it. He kissed my forehead again, then stepped back, giving me space. Unpack. Rest. Tonight we'll have dinner as a family. You, me, Emma, Maria. And every day after that, we'll figure out how to do this together. The next 2 weeks passed in a dream. I started at the gallery, a beautiful space in the arts district that showcased emerging artists. My boss, Catherine, was a sophisticated woman in her 60s who treated me like an actual professional rather than a charity case. The work was challenging and creative and made me remember why I'd once loved art. Emma thrived. She adored Maria, who doted on her like the grandmother she'd never had. The on-site childcare at the gallery was top tier, and for the first time, I could work without constant panic about my daughter's safety. And Luca. Luca was everywhere and nowhere, present for dinners, helping Emma with puzzles, asking about my day with genuine interest. But he kept his word about not rushing me. His goodnight kisses landed on my forehead or cheek, never demanding more than I was ready to give. But I felt his restraint, saw it in the tension of his shoulders when I walked past, wearing the silk pajamas Maria had insisted I needed, heard it in the roughness of his voice when he said my name, watched it in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. Hunger barely leashed, desire carefully controlled. He was waiting, giving me time to adjust, to trust, to want. And God help me, I was starting to want. The breaking point came on a Wednesday night. I'd stayed late at the gallery, working on a new exhibition. James drove me home through rain that had turned the city into a blur of lights and water. I was exhausted but satisfied, the kind of tired that came from meaningful work rather than desperate survival. The penthouse was quiet when I arrived. Maria had already left, Emma was asleep, and I expected Luca to be in his office, working through whatever dangerous business demanded his attention. Instead, I found him in the living room, standing by those impossible windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled up, and there was blood on his knuckles. My heart stopped. Luca? He turned, and the look in his eyes was wild, raw, and dangerous, and barely controlled. You should go to bed, he said, his voice rough. You're hurt. It's nothing. It's blood. I moved closer despite the warning in his posture. What happened? Business. The kind you don't need to know about. He downed the whiskey in one swallow. Go to bed, Sarah. No, I reached for his hand, and he tried to pull away, but I held firm. Let me clean this. Sarah, let me help you. I met his eyes, saw the war raging there. Please. Something in him broke. His shoulders sagged, and he let me lead him to the kitchen, let me sit him on one of the bar stools, let me gather first aid supplies with shaking hands. His knuckles were split, not deep, but angry and already bruising. I cleaned them gently, aware of his eyes on my face, his breath uneven. Someone came after me tonight, he said quietly. Someone stupid enough to think they could intimidate me by threatening what's mine. My hand stilled. What do you mean? They mentioned you. Emma. Said things. His jaw clenched. Things that made me break their bones before my men could pull me off. Fear, and something else, something hot and fierce, flooded through me. Are we in danger? No. The word was absolute. They'll never threaten you again, neither will anyone else. I made sure of that. I looked at his damaged knuckles, at the evidence of violence done in my name, and felt something shift inside me. This dangerous man, this person who lived in shadows and commanded fear, had gotten hurt protecting us. "Thank you," I whispered. His laugh was bitter. "Don't thank me for being a monster, Sarah. You're not a monster." I finished bandaging his hand but didn't let go. Monsters don't read bedtime stories to little girls. Monsters don't make sure their housekeeper has Sundays off to see her grandchildren. Monsters don't wait patiently for scared women to trust them. You don't know what I've done, what I'm capable of. I know enough. I moved closer, standing between his knees, my free hand coming up to touch his face. "I know you've given us safety when we had none. Purpose when I'd forgotten what that felt like. A home when all we had was a room. That's not monstrous, Luca. That's..." "What?" His hand settled on my hips, careful, controlled even now. "Everything," I breathed, echoing his word from the restaurant. Something ignited in his eyes. Heat and hunger and desperate hope. Sarah. My name was a prayer and a warning. "If you keep looking at me like that, I won't be able to maintain my distance." "Then don't. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying." My heart hammered, but I didn't step back. "I'm saying I'm tired of being afraid, tired of holding back, tired of pretending I don't want you as much as you want me." His grip on my hips tightened. "You're sure?" "Terrified," I admitted. "But sure." He stood in one fluid motion, his hands framing my face, tilting my head back. "Once I have you, Sarah, I won't let go. You understand that? You'll be mine completely. No half measures. No backing away when it gets scary. I understand." "Say it," he demanded, his voice rough. "Say you're mine." "I'm yours," I whispered, and then his mouth was on mine, and the world caught fire. His kiss consumed me, not gentle, not careful, desperate and claiming in everything I'd seen leashed in his eyes for weeks. His hands tangled in my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I melted against him, giving him everything he demanded and more. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his eyes closed, his control visibly fraying. "Bedroom," he growled. "Now. Before I take you right here." He swept me into his arms like I weighed nothing, carrying me through the penthouse to his room, a space I'd never entered, his private sanctuary. The bed was enormous, the sheets dark, and every surface spoke of masculine wealth and taste. He laid me down carefully, then stood back, his chest heaving, his eyes roaming over me with possessive heat. "Last chance," he said roughly. "Tell me to stop and I will. I'll walk away. Give you more time. But if I start this, Sarah, I'm finishing it. I'm making you mine in every way that matters." I sat up, my hands trembling only slightly as I reached for the hem of my shirt. "Then start." The sound he made was almost a growl. He was on me in seconds, helping me undress, his hands everywhere, reverent and demanding, gentle and rough, learning every inch of my body like he was memorizing a sacred text. "So fucking beautiful," he murmured against my skin, his lips tracing patterns of fire across my collarbone, my breasts, my stomach. "I've dreamed about this, about you, about making you fall apart under my hands." I arched into his touch, overwhelmed by sensation, by the feeling of being wanted so completely. His hands knew exactly where to touch, how much pressure, when to be gentle and when to be firm. He played my body like an instrument, drawing sounds from me I'd never made before. When he finally moved over me, settling between my thighs, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "Mine," he said, and it was a vow. "Say it again." "Yours," I gasped. He took me then, slow and deep and devastating, and I shattered around him, crying out his name like a prayer. We moved together in the darkness, two broken people finding wholeness in each other's arms. He was careful with me despite his hunger, constantly checking that I was okay, that I wanted this, that every touch brought pleasure rather than pain. And when I fell apart again, he followed me over the edge, my name on his lips like a benediction. Afterwards, he held me against his chest, our heartbeats gradually slowing, our breathing evening out. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my spine, and I felt more safe, more cherished than I'd ever felt in my life. "I love you," he said into the darkness, his voice raw. "I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy. But I love you, Sarah. You and Emma both. You're my family now. The family I thought I'd lost forever." Tears streaked down my face. "I love you too. God help me, I do." His arms tightened around me. No God necessary. Just us. Just this. Forever. 6 months later, I stood in the gallery during the opening of my first curated exhibition, watching wealthy patrons admire the work of artists I'd discovered and nurtured. My dress was elegant, selected by me this time, not bought out of necessity but desire. Emma played in the children's area we'd expanded, her laughter floating through the space like music. And Luca stood across the room, talking with potential buyers, looking devastating in his suit. His eyes found mine constantly, checking, claiming, promising. We'd had struggles, moments when his world and mine collided in ways that terrified me. A rival family testing boundaries, forcing him to demonstrate exactly why no one threatened what was his. Nights when I woke to find his side of the bed empty, knowing he was handling business, I still didn't fully understand. But we'd also had joy, Emma calling him Papa for the first time, her small arms wrapped around his neck. Quiet mornings with coffee and conversation. Passionate nights where he worshipped my body and I surrendered everything I was. The ring on my finger caught the light. Platinum and diamonds, but simple, elegant. He'd proposed 2 months ago, on one knee in our kitchen while Emma and Maria cheered. The wedding was planned for spring, small and intimate. Just family and the people who mattered. Catherine approached, her smile wide. "This is incredible, Sarah. Every piece is generating interest. You have a real gift for this." Pride swelled in my chest, not just at her words, but at what they represented. I'd built this. Me. With support, yes, but through my own talent and hard work and vision. I wasn't just Luca's woman. I was Sarah Mitchell, gallery coordinator, artist advocate, professional in my own right. Luca materialized at my side, his hand settling possessively on the small of my back. "She's extraordinary," he told Catherine, but his eyes were on me. I knew it the moment I met her. Catherine excused herself tactfully, and I turned to face him fully. "You're supposed to be networking," I teased. I was. Then I saw you standing here, looking like every fantasy I've ever had. And networking became irrelevant. His hand slid lower, dangerously close to inappropriate for a public event. "How much longer do we have to stay?" "At least another hour. I'm the coordinator. I can't just leave." His smile was wicked. Pity. "I have plans for you tonight." Heat flooded through me. What kind of plans? The kind that involve that black lace I saw you put on this morning, and me removing it very slowly, with my teeth. "Luca," I breathed, scandalized and aroused in equal measure. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine, so different from the cold, controlled man I'd met in that diner. I'd done that, given him back laughter, warmth, family. Emma ran over, nearly knocking into a sculpture in her excitement. "Mama, Papa, Miss Catherine said I can help put the little stickers on the art. Can I?" "May I corrected automatically, and she bounced with impatience. "May I please?" Luca crouched down to her level, straightening her dress with gentle hands. "Of course, Principessa, but carefully, yes? These are important pieces. I'll be super careful, I promise." She kissed his cheek sloppily and ran back to Catherine, leaving us smiling after her. "She's so much like you," Luca said, standing. "Brave and stubborn, and absolutely certain she can handle anything." "She gets the stubborn from you," I countered. "Probably." His arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close despite the crowd. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saying yes that night in the diner. For trusting me. For giving me a reason to be more than what I was." His lips brushed my temple. "For loving me despite everything." "Not despite," I corrected softly. "Because of everything. Because you're complex and dangerous and protective and gentle. Because you read bedtime stories and break bones for us. Because you're mine. Always, he promised. Yours always. The exhibition was a massive success. 3 pieces sold that night, and 2 more artists requested representation. By the time we finally left, I was exhausted and elated, and desperately wanting the privacy of home. James drove us through the city, our city now, transformed from a place that had tried to crush me into one filled with possibility. Emma dozed in her seat, worn out from excitement. Luca's hand found mine in the darkness of the SUV, his thumb tracing my engagement ring. I never thought I'd have this again, he said quietly. A family. Someone to come home to. Reasons to be better than I have to be. You were always more than what you thought you were, I told him. You just needed someone to see it. You see too much. Not enough. I squeezed his hand. And I want to see everything. All of you. The good, the bad, the dangerous. All of it. His eyes gleamed in the passing streetlights. Be careful what you wish for, amore. I'm not careful anymore. You taught me that. He pulled me closer, and I rested my head on his shoulder, breathing in his scent. Familiar now. Home now. At the penthouse, Maria had left dinner warming and a note about Emma's bedtime routine. We carried our sleeping daughter to her butterfly room, tucking her in together, a practiced routine that still made my heart clench with gratitude. In our bedroom, ours now, not his, the space we shared every night, Luca made good on his promise about the black lace. He undressed me slowly, reverently, his hands and mouth mapping every inch of my skin. I love you, he murmured against my throat, more than I thought I could love anything. You saved me, Sarah. We saved each other, I gasped as his mouth moved lower. We made love slowly, passionately, with the ease of 2 people who knew each other's bodies intimately, but still found new ways to bring pleasure. And afterwards, wrapped in his arms, I felt the last remnants of the terrified woman I'd been fade away. I was Sarah Mitchell, soon to be DeLuca. Mother, gallery coordinator, lover, partner, safe, cherished. Home. What are you thinking? Luca asked, his fingers drawing patterns on my bare shoulder. About that night in the diner, how terrified I was, how desperate. His arms tightened around me. I was terrified too. I saw you standing there with Emma, and something in me that you were mine, knew that I'd do anything to keep you. I'm glad you did. I turned to face him, cupping his jaw. I'm glad I asked to share your table. His smile was soft, genuine, beautiful. Best question anyone's ever asked me. What if I'd chosen a different booth, walked away? I would have found you anyway, not arrogant, just certain. Some things are inevitable, amore. You and me, we were inevitable. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into it. Gratitude, love, desire, trust. He responded with equal fervor, rolling me beneath him, his body covering mine protectively even in passion. Later, much later, as dawn painted the sky outside our windows, I lay awake watching him sleep. His face was peaceful, the hard edges softened, his hand resting possessively on my hip even in unconsciousness. This dangerous man, this complicated, fierce, protective person who'd claimed me in a diner and refused to let go, who'd taken my desperate struggle and transformed it into this: safety, love, family, future. Emma's small voice came through the baby monitor we still used despite her growing independence. Mama? Papa? Luca woke instantly, his body tensing, his hand reaching for the gun he kept in the bedside table, always alert, always ready to protect us. I've got her, I murmured, kissing his shoulder. Go back to sleep. But he followed anyway, because that was who he was. We found Emma sitting up in bed, clutching her stuffed octopus, her hair wild from sleep. Bad dream, Principessa? Luca asked gently, scooping her into his arms. She nodded against his shoulder, and he carried her back to our room. Settling her between us in the massive bed, she curled into his chest, her small hand finding mine, connecting us all. Safe now? He murmured to her. Safe, she agreed sleepily. Always safe with you and Mama. Over her head, Luca's eyes met mine, and I saw everything there. Love, promise, fierce determination to protect what was his. Our family, our future, our forever. I'd asked to share a table with a stranger 6 months ago, desperate and afraid and seeing no other option. He'd said I could only if he paid the bill. That bill had become everything. A debt transformed into devotion. Payment given in protection and passion and promises kept. And as dawn broke fully over the city, painting our bedroom in shades of gold and rose, I realized that some debts were meant to be paid for a lifetime, some tables were meant to be shared forever, and some strangers were always meant to become home. I love you, I whispered into the quiet morning, my voice barely audible over Emma's soft breathing. Luca's hand found mine across our daughter's sleeping form, and I you, amore, forever. Forever. The words settled into my heart like a promise finally kept, a future finally secure, a home finally found. We'd both been broken when we met, him by loss, me by struggle, but somehow, impossibly, we'd found each other in a crowded diner on a desperate night, and from that encounter had built something beautiful, a family, a love, a life. And as I drifted back to sleep, surrounded by the two people who meant everything, I sent a silent thank you to whatever force had guided me to his table that night, to the moment that changed everything. To the Mafia boss who'd claimed me with a simple condition, that he pay the bill. He'd paid it in full, and I'd given him everything in return.